How are you there? What we are seeing in Zimbabwe is what one can call manufactured consent. The President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Iti Mnangagwa, manufactures a consent that originally does not exist. He manufactures within the framework of ZANU-PF, framing the narrative as if it is the ZANU-PF provinces that want him to stay until 2030. But he is a constitutionalist who does not want to breach the constitution. Of course, we know 2030 is a code word for that term. They just don't want to say it. It's up to 2033. And on top of that, once we do away with the constitution's hindrance for a third term, what's there to stop them from having a fourth term? Because if Patrick Chinamasa and his people have their way, they will remove the 2-term limits, and that will mean that it's game over. You could have 4, 5, 100 terms. So 2030 is a way in which to buy time or to hoodwink us to think that he's going to retire in 2030. He won't retire in 2030. He's just saying, if I can only break through 2028, I can go on forever. For the elections in 2028 are for a 5-year term that expires in 2033. But if this referendum or these 2 referendums are held, and obviously the Zimbabweans will reject, but knowing that ED and FAS have hijacked ZEC, the results will come out as if the Zimbabweans consented. So that would be a manufactured consent. It is manufactured within ZANU-PF because we see theoretics in ZANU-PF politics. There is nobody in those provinces, okay, perhaps there's a few people in those provinces that actually do want it to stay. Most of the ZANU-PF members in the provinces are suffering. They are languishing in poverty when the few chefs are the ones that are rich. Those are the people that force their people to and through them manufacture this consent that is not there. ZANU-PF, surprise, surprise, is a terribly weak institution. It is a weak institution because the ordinary members of ZANU-PF do not even have the ability to express their views and opinions without fear of repercussions. Whether my CIO or my chairperson or my chair ZANU, all of them, they have to toe the party line or else some of them die. We see the death of the soldiers in the past 4 or 5 years who were part of the coup. So ZANU-PF leadership manufactures fear so much that ZANU-PF members have to learn what to say and what to do. So if you're an ordinary ZANU-PF member or you are in the committee of one of those provinces, you are constantly asking yourself, who is in power? Iti Mnangagwa. What does he want? A third term. So therefore, how do you please him? You ask for him to go for a third term because that's exactly what ED wants. Because we've seen that those that are against this ED 2030 are castigated. Even Patrick Chinamasa himself, who was playing the devil's advocate, but actually he himself is a devil. But he was trying to cancel ZANU-PF members as if like this thing is too hard, the president doesn't want it. Even him, he was attacked by ZANU-PF people. And anybody in ZANU-PF that doesn't agree with 2030 is thought of as a Chiwenga person, and therefore they are sidelined, even removed in some WhatsApp groups, castigated and all that stuff. So a human being quickly learns that, oh, okay, here what you have to do, just do exactly what it wants. People in ZANU-PF are clear. They might have their consent stolen from them or manufactured, but they are clever. This is how they think, and ordinary ZANU-PF thinks like this. ED wants a third term, but ED wants to hide behind us. So they are playing the game together. They understand the game that ED is playing. It is playing the game of I'm a constitutionalist, I don't want a third term, I want to retire in 2028. And at the background, it tells Chinamasa and these guys, go and force the provinces to say we want it to be in power. So when the provinces come and say we want 2030, and it doesn't stop there. Okay, here's the thing: if it truly doesn't want 2030 or forever, let's stop using that 2030 because there's nothing like 2030 because the 2028 elections gave a 5-year term that ends in 2033. So we might as well just say it hit 2033. So like we must amend the constitution so that the president can get 2 more years. What the hell does that mean? Does it mean that if he wins 2028, the term is just gonna be 2 years? Because if he wins 2028, the term is 5 years. It's up to 2033. And if he removes the limitations on the constitution, it means that he could even go for a fourth term from 2033 to 2038, and even a fifth term from 2038 to 2043. You see, these numbers are getting crazy. From 2043, we're going to 2048 and 2053. And think about it, 2057. Just listen to those crazy numbers. The moment that referendum is put out there, should we remove the term limits? Remember, we never had term limits because of Robert Mugabe's long and evil rule. And we've seen the dictatorial tendencies of African leaders. And we had to work hard for that reason, so to have term limits so that we are not under the oppression of a dictator for more than 10 years. So there was a rationale behind that. And the people that were part of it, like, Vanamonzora, who were part of drafting the constitution, even Iting Nangagwa himself claims that he was part of the drafters of the constitution. He surely should understand and appreciate the reason for a two-term limit, and also the second reason of ensuring that should that two-term limit be done away with, the incumbent is supposed to benefit. So as a safeguard against tyranny. Iting Nangagwa himself, as he claims to be a constitutionalist, and I'm going to prove that he is not a constitutionalist. He has never been one. He undermines the constitution. A constitutionalist is the one who follows the law by the letter and by the spirit. Itim Nangagwa does not respect the spirit of the constitution. When he says he is a constitutionalist, he is trying to claim the constitutional letter without applying the spirit of the constitution. Therefore, when he wants to rep the constitution, what he does the undoable, the unthinkable, the abomination that causes dissolution, which is actually to change the constitution according to his desires. And when he does his desires, he has already changed the constitution. And then when he does his desires after a changed constitution, he can still come around and claim to be a constitutionalist. Which means that if it wants elections to be held once in 10 years, he can change the constitution and write that. If it wants, whatever it wants, if it's not in the constitution, he will change the constitution. So we are seeing now the malleability of the constitution under Idim Nangagwa's reign. So therefore, we can safely say that under Idi, there is no constitution. It is the constitution. For what is written there does not matter because he can change it at any time, whatever he wants. And then as he changes what he wants, and then he does what he has changed, he still wants to label himself a constitutionalist. No, sir, you are not a constitutionalist. By that definition I've given you, you are not a constitutionalist. You are a raper, you are an abuser of our constitution. The constitution is there to guide you, so that there will be guardrails, so that you do not overstep your boundaries. But if you keep on moving the borders and changing the boundaries, therefore you are actually disrespecting the boundaries. Disrespecting the boundaries means changing long-held boundaries. That is unconstitutional. And a person who claims to be a constitutionalist by changing the constitution to suit his desires is just hoodwinking people and erodes trust in government. Nangagwa, we saw him do the same thing using Songezo Chabang, who came from nowhere and raped the constitution of the Triple C opposition for a guy who just comes out of the wood from the bushes, claims to be a secretary general of a party, and even parliament and the court of Zimbabwe listening to him. Why wouldn't the parliament? Okay, all right, we were saying that we were where we were. Constitutionalism. You are not a constitutionalist, say, if you are going to change the constitution according to what you want. The definition of a constitutionalist is someone who respects boundaries. And the definition of a non-constitutionalist is the one who changes boundaries. Go to the Bible. There's a verse that where God says, I hate people who move ancient boundaries. That's in the Bible. The Bible says, it's the word of God says, I hate people who move ancient borders. What was God talking about? They're not talking about just physical, the country borders. It's talking about things like the constitution as well. It applies to those things. Things that are ancient borders. Two-term limit is an ancient border that we have in the constitution. By wanting to do away with that, you are changing ancient borders, and God hates that. On top of that, you are under delivering on the economy. If when I look at the performance of Mr. President on the various matrices, you fail. Unemployment rate is so high, state of infrastructure terrible, level of corruption is off the roof. In fact, it is these extreme levels of corruption that enables the manufacturing of the consent. So the consent is manufactured via violence means, via corrupt means, coercing the provinces into chanting it 2030 so that as that chanted, the consent is captured on camera, it then is used as evidence of support on the ground. When in actual fact, President, it does not have support on the ground. Even on the ground of ZANU-PF, people in ZANU-PF do not support you, sir, anymore. Even those people in those provinces that were chanting in 2030 fair, they are lying. They don't support you. They just fear you. They are afraid of dying. They are afraid of being excommunicated. They are afraid of Becky, or not a Becky, or Becky, and they are afraid of their lives. So they feel this is how these people feel. Let's say you are like Manicaland, just for example, there's 100 delegates from Manicaland. And then someone in the podium goes like 80, 20, 30. Manicaland, Morokuti Chi. Even if you do not want, you cannot say no, because the others next to you are saying yeah. So because you don't want to be orchestrated, you don't want no, you don't want to be castrated from the crowd. You want to fit in, peer pressure. You will also say yeah. So that manufactured voice through cohesion and various other forms of manipulation creates this fake support, this fake consent. And then you will hear them say, you will hear Patrick Shinamasa say, 10 provinces, all of them support it 2030. And you see them there chanting, and then you perceive that perhaps there is an existence of such a desire for a term extension. But as I say to you, it is manufactured, it is wrong. There's a nice English saying that says, when the tide goes out, we will see who is swimming naked. A tide is going to go out, and we will see who's swimming naked. When real speak to real, those people that are chanting those noises will chant the right thing, and you will hear them stopping the chanting altogether. Right now they are chanting because the tide is up. Nobody can say that they're not even wearing underpants. Some of them have got torn underpants, but the water is here. So we are all here. We are all here. Those with no underpants, those with torn underpants, and those with Louis Vuitton underpants. No one can see your Louis Vuitton underpants when the water is up here in the sea, up by the neck. Wait until that. Wait until the tide goes out. We will see who is wearing Louis Vuitton, who is wearing Prada, and who is wearing nada. Now, prophetically speaking, the tide is going to go, and the expression will find full meaning. So this manufactured concept. Now, here's the thing about manufacturing this consent and weakening the constitution. It weakens all institutions. If you study Britain in the 1820s and 1830s, when there were uprisings, revolt in Manchester and around towns in Britain, the leaders accepted the demands of the people, even though some of them didn't want, even though the leaders did not want some of the reforms. They had to go through reforms in Britain because they got to understand the value of the rule of law and the value of keeping the constitution strong and institutions strong. Nangagwa and those around him seem not to have learned that. They don't understand that through these plans that they are having, that they're doing, they are weakening state institutions, thereby weakening the state itself. And the person doing the weakening is Idim Nagagwa and his comrades. When the state is weak, it can no longer be respected. And the citizenry can no longer consent to be or obligated to listen to authority because the authoritative voice would have been lost because no one can know what is right and what is wrong because it can be changed at any given time. And in cases like that, the result will be a change, an immediate change of authority. Because voices will rise. As we begin to realize that this direction that we're taking will cause everybody to disrespect authority, leading to societal anarchy. In order to avoid that, we have to do away with the people that are causing the decay of our institution. In this case, it's Idim Nangagwa and his cohorts. Those in a higher authority, for example, those in military leadership and those in positions where they can move the needle, will begin to realize that even their own safety is hinged on the strength of Zimbabwean institutions. Nyembe Zema soldiers, they are respected only because people respect strong institutions. The moment when people stop respecting strong institutions and no longer listening to authority, it doesn't matter what you are a commander. People can just throw stones at you in the street. What you're going to do? They won't listen to you. Even your own soldiers won't listen to you because you have weakened institutions. So in that scenario, no one will have power. It will be anarchy. Everybody will take their power back from authorities and we will all be equal. And that is not a pleasant sight, because if we all take our consent, if we all take our authority from the authorities, we will all be equal and there will be anarchy. There will be nobody who's more powerful than the other. So your position, whether you're a judge or a policeman, or whatever, there's nothing. It doesn't mean that, it won't mean anything. That is anarchy, the opposite of democracy. So that state of anarchy is bad for everyone, including my soldier Asho, because my soldiers, their eyes do not pop bullets. All right, they are human beings, like they are made of flesh like you and me. Kana general is drinking his beer there in Harare. 10 people, or even 2 people, one person can attack him and beat him up to death. Even you're a general, what can you do? And then you can tell your bodyguards, they'll say, Valerio, we don't care about you. We want you gone. You're destroying our country. What are you going to do? That is the state of anarchy. What is stopping from those things from happening is because people still respect institutions, because institutions are strong. But Nangagwa is weakening institutions. By weakening institutions, is weakening for everybody, all of the people in authority. There will be no longer be an authoritative voice that is listened to if we go down this way. You understand? That is why advanced countries respect democracy, because they understand that when anarchy comes, you become a Haiti. In Haiti, nobody listens to anyone. Even a gang leader in Haiti can be killed by rivals, the rival gang, or even his deputy or whatever, because there's no rule of law. There's Nobody is accountable to anyone. There's no constitutionality at all. Mnangagwa is destroying our constitution. Those that have got authoritative voices in Zimbabwe should stop him. Okay, he must be stopped. Him and the criminal gang around him must be stopped from doing this, because if they're not stopped, our country is going to be in a state of anarchy. And in a state of anarchy, as I told you, we are all equal and no one is safe, including my chef Anenyembe. It won't matter with the retired general. If you're a retired general, you don't walk around with bombs strapped around your body. You don't speak and people and bombs come out of your mouth and people fall. No, you don't. You're just a human being. They can clap you. If you're 35 years old, you can fall on the ground. You become nothing. Whether already retired, you are nothing in a state of anarchy. What causes you to be a respected retired army general is because there is institutions that are authoritative, that give out a directive and people listen. And if people do not listen, there's repercussions. All right, but Mnangagwa is destroying and weakening those institutions. The authoritative voices of those institutions will weaken. If it's not unchecked and left like that over time, there will be no institution that anyone respects, and therefore there will be no person anyone respects. There will be no property rights. Even if you say this house is yours, we're just gonna come in and take what you want. What are you gonna do? Who are you? You can come into a house and borrow deal and just just loot. Who are you gonna report to? Who? Which police? There'll be no police. It will be anarchy. So to avoid anarchy, you stop those that are promoting anarchists from holding positions of authority, so that allows them to lead our country to a state of anarchy. That's what Nagaga is doing. So military generals, you must stop this guy. You must stop him. You must stop him ASAP. Because if you do not stop him and anarchy comes, you too will no longer be safe. So for the safety of everybody else, we must now make a round these guys up. Nangagwa zenda mekli, kuta kwasheta kurei, that's fetty boom boom, and all these criminal elements, the so-called criminal syndicate that is in Harare. You should try. If you're a military general who's worth his salt, otherwise, in my presidency, I will not have a military general that allows anarchy in a country, that allows criminality in government, and does nothing. What kind of an army general are you? You must retire. I want an army general who's able to understand that to protect the sovereignty of the country, it's not just about controlling the soldiers against foreign invaders, but also protecting the state from even state leaders. Those who lead our state must be subject to a law, a supreme law. Now, that is the role and job. of the army general. If the commander in chief of the army is the virus in the state, then the next person in authority, which is the army commander, should make a key decision to save the statehood of Zimbabwe. Because once we become an anarchy, any invading force, hey my daughter, there is a force here in northern Mozambique, just right next to Zimbabwe. In an anarchy, Zimbabwe, that force can come into the country and take over the nation. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? They will establish an Islamic State of Zimbabwe, ISZ, combine Zimbabwe and northern Mozambique. What are you going to do? And who are you going to blame? You will be to blame yourself. As an army general, you will be to blame because you allowed criminality in the highest places. And that criminality, because perhaps your relatives were eating, and for those that you are afraid were eating, so you just said, let me leave them like that. But they have destroyed democracy and brought our nation into an anarchy. And when there is anarchy and no organization, no respect for the rule of law, foreign invaders can come in, even those jihadists in northern Mozambique can come to Zimbabwe. Anybody, any country, anyone with the military can come and invade us. How are we going to defend ourselves when our soldiers are weak, they are poor, they can even be bought by an invading army. They can be surrounded and forced to join insurgents. In Zimbabwe, we have never thought of insurgents. We always think that this is the things that happen in Nigeria, in Central African Republic, or in these African countries where there's no good governance. No good governance. Mnangagwa is leading us to a place where there's no good governance. When there's extremely weak institutions, dissidents and insurgents will be on the rise. Opportunists. The country has got gold, has got diamond, has got lithium, they've got all of these minerals that are needed. I am telling you, the global anarchists are salivating and desiring and ever planning for a way of entering. But the only way that they cannot enter is when the country has got strong institutions. What is protecting Zimbabwe from the global looters, not ZANU-PF looters, from the global looters, for there are many of them, and many of them are in support of Russia, led by Vladimir Putin. There are many of them. The only reason why they're not coming is because of our institution. Yeah, so you need to understand there, my army general, that when you allow these things to carry on, your problem will no longer be just be the people of Zimbabwe, whatever. The problem will be insurgents. The risk of insurgents is going to go up the roof. Take a look at the Russian-sponsored militaries are doing in the Sahel and Central Africa. Okay, take a look at what those extremists are doing in northern Mozambique. Do you know why they're able to invade northern Mozambique and the Mozambican army cannot do anything about it? Because Mozambique has got very weak institutions that are not able to extend authority throughout the whole of the country of Mozambique. In Zimbabwe, as we disintegrate into these weak institutions in the country, we become vulnerable for foreign interference. Foreign interference doesn't always come from governments. It will come from these strange groups. They can come as religious groups, or they can come in any other form. They can even use the grievances of your very own people, the valid grievances of your own people. They're able to radicalize your very own people who are already radically anti you. Therefore, that void can be filled by nefarious actors, foreign actors that will be able to destabilize the country and lead us into a state of discomfort and never-ending wars. Take a look at what's happening in the northern Kivu and all the whole part of northern DRC. Rwanda will never admit anything. Um, what's the other country there? Uganda will never admit any interference. But you will see these funny groups, M23, that just pop up from nowhere with advanced militaries, and some of them sponsored by formal governments, but covertly under certain names and certain formations, and will be able to create a narrative that is can be used to radicalize your population against the government, because government has far too long ignored the plight of those people. All right, the government itself has radicalized their own people. Don't worry about the foreign radicalizers. Worry too about the government effectively uh, disenfranchising its people, manufacturing consent that does not exist. As I told you, when the tide goes out, we will see who is swimming naked. When the foreign extremists come and abuse also, they too are abusers, because they will abuse the suffering of the people, the oppression of the people. They will use that, and they will come to the people as if they are about to aid the people, and the people will be able to say, yes, you're going to help us to topple a government, for example. Okay, so you're going to have to save, you're going to find yourself dealing with strategies and wars across the country. And that is possible to happen in a country that has got weak institutions, and when no one respects that there's no rule of law, quickly would disintegrate into no respect for property rights, and everybody becomes a law unto himself. If people no longer trust the law system, they will begin to develop their own laws, their own law system. People will become a law unto themselves. And then government will not be able to exert power and authority across the whole country. And the one to blame is the government, because they are the ones who failed to enfranchise people. You must enfranchise people, bring them into the political scene, bring them into the economic umbrella as well, expand economic opportunities. Perhaps it will help people it will help to alleviate those radical concerns, and it will make it difficult to radicalize people that already are consenting to the government in power. You see, if you think that because Munenyembe and you have got guns and you can just manufacture consent and you can just do as you please, you can abuse and rape the constitution as you so desire, one thing that you will discover that perhaps you care. The people indeed do not have any power, but however, they will be silently be radicalized against you, and somebody more powerful than you, clever than you, will be able to take advantage of their state of being, their state of mind. And they will quickly radicalize them against you, empower them, give them guns, bullets, bigger guns and bigger bullets than you have. And when that day, it will be judgment day. It will be the day, there will be no place for you to hide, and there will be no one else to blame but you, Valerio. It is a job, sir, to tell President Itim Nangagwa to vacate office. Not only him, he must take that fatty boom boom, Chibao, his children, that boy who knows nothing, who's in the army, show him the door. That Takwirei must get a passport and go live wherever where he has stolen our billions, and resuscitate our economy, make sure that all our money that, that, that is banked in Mauritius and in the Cayman Islands comes back to rebuild our schools, roads. So I am putting all that heavy burden on this one person, this one man. He's got only one job to do. His name is called Valerio Sebant. We're not hiding now. We must come in the open and tell people what to do. They are in authority for a reason. Valerio Sebanda is not the president of Zimbabwe. He does not run government. but he is the protector of the realm. He is the protector of the sovereignty. The job of the military commanders is to protect the sovereignty of the country. The role of the president of Zimbabwe is to run the daily activities of government. You are CEO of government, of ministries. There is people that protect the sovereignty of the country. It is the military and to some extent the intelligence. But however, corruption might subvert those roles. We end up having the military and the intelligence services and the president himself undermining the institutions, weakening the institutions of the country, disenfranchising people on a wide scale, and without them noticing, they are actually creating a breeding ground for a society that can be easily radicalized. Even within your ranks, even within ZANU-PF ranks, even within those provinces, you might discover that separate the manufactured consent, there is a slow brewing radicalization taking place. And you just have to pray that the radicalizer is not someone who has got bad intentions. But of course, radicalizers always have bad intentions, and they do not have even the interest of the people that they are radicalizing at heart. That's what you get. You get to a state of constant war. You get DRC, Northern Kivu. You get something like Central African Republic. You get something like a Sudan, like an Ethiopia, like a Northern Nigeria, like most of the Sahel countries. It is possible for that thing to happen in Zimbabwe. What had been stopping all along is because Robert Mugabe did one very good thing, which is keeping the strength of institutions. Because of that, our country was safe, our populations were safe from radicalization. But Mnangagwa has weakened institutions, which leaves us to be vulnerable to radicalization, which leads to disturbances, unrest, and constant wars that will never end. So, as I close this is what we will have to be thinking about today and going forward, and putting not pressure and allowing the protector of the realm, Valerio, to eventually make the right decision. Have a great day.